Once this is approved by the SEC, how quickly will it take before we actually see these ETFs trading?
So there's two big hurdles here. The first one, of course, which we've reported right now, is that the SEC has told filers and issuers to basically submit their final 19B4s. That is one step. The thing we're still looking out for is the amended S1s. Basically, that still has to be approved. And of course, these 19B4s need to be approved as well. But what we're hearing from our sources is that basically we're getting down to the finish line here, that they really don't have any substantial comments, any substantial feedback yet. So as James alluded to, what we could see in the next couple of hours is these final 19B4s being submitted. What's important to note here is that it's unclear whether basically all of the filers have heard this, whether we're talking about some, whether we're talking about all 13, because this is a very crowded race at this point.
It's a very crowded race, but at the same time, the SEC doesn't want to be playing favorites necessarily and giving any one issuer a lead, an unnecessary lead. What does your reporting show in terms of how they're likely to approve all these applications?
Exactly. That's exactly what we've heard as well, because that's what they did with the Bitcoin futures ETFs, which launched a little bit over 2 years ago. Of course, remember, ProShares got the lead start there. They have $1.8 billion in assets. A pretty much identical fund from Valkyrie launched a few days later. They have $34 million in assets. So they're trying to avoid a repeat of what we saw there. So again, the thinking and the consensus in the market is that this is a common clock, that they'd like to approve everyone all at once here. Whether everyone will be ready in time, all of these issuers, is the outstanding question.
Well, if you had to think about who would be ready and not ready, let's kind of go through the stack for a minute, because one matters maybe a little more than others, given there's already money in play. That is GBTC, that is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. The discount has narrowed to only 6%. James, how much is at risk for their investors if they are not first out of the gate?
Honestly, I don't think much is at risk, because even if they're not first out of the gate, ultimately they are going to convert and that discount is going to be gone. Obviously, it's more at risk not for GBTC investors, but for Grayscale themselves, because if they're out in the first wave, they're almost de facto going to be the leader. We like to look at this market as it tends to be winner take most, and the people with the most volume tends to get more volume and dominate the space a little bit. Again, it's winner take most, so there's plenty of room for other people to be successful. But if they go out on the first day, they're at a pretty hefty head start at over 26 billion in assets. They trade over $350 million a day, both in assets and trading volume. They'd be in the top 1-2% of ETFs in the US if this were an ETF already. So that's as big of a head start as you could possibly get. So it's possible their situation is a little bit different from every other issuer because of the way that they filed the lawsuit, and they're filing what's known as an S3 rather than S1. There's some slight differences. So if there is a difference, it might delay them a tiny bit, but I think they're likely to go out on the first day, because if they're not out in the first day, or at least within a day or two of other ones launching, there's probably going to be another lawsuit.
And James, what's curious here is just how much attention they were paying to every single filing. Every single update turns into this market-moving event. Is there any blueprint for that? Have you seen anything like this? I mean, we've had new asset classes come to the ETF wrapper before, but I can't remember when it has received this much attention.
Yeah, nothing. This is a one-of-one situation. We've never seen this much interest from people that don't really know much about ETFs or traditional finance, for that matter. People have become legal experts. I mean, I knew a lot of this stuff from a higher level. I knew some of it, but I've had to get way deeper in the weeds because our clients and just people in general are demanding to understand every step of the process of what's going on here. And it makes sense, really. I mean, people have been trying to launch this thing for 10 years. There's politicians involved. There's deadlines. There's billions of dollars at stake. Like, this is a big deal, and there's a reason there's getting a lot of coverage and interest from both the media and asset allocation perspective.
So once the SEC does approve the Bitcoin ETFs, and that's a when not if kind of question, and we've been deliberating on the when, how do investors figure out which Bitcoin ETF they want to buy? I mean, are we going to have a Super Bowl 2024 full of Bitcoin ETF commercials?
I wouldn't count out Super Bowl commercials for sure. I mean, we've already seen a whole bunch of issuers with their own commercials. I mean, we have Van Eck, Hashdex, Bitwise. Everyone's doing different things to market their own products. And like I said, it tends to be winner take most, not winner take all. So right now we're looking at 11 issuers. I don't know if there's room for 11 different spot Bitcoin ETF products, but there's definitely room for multiple. So some people are only going to care about the fee. They want the cheapest fee. That's how they're going to get exposure. Some are going to care about the brand name. There's undoubtedly going to be advisors out there that just trust BlackRock and that's what they're going to use, or Fidelity, or what have you. Some people are going to stick with Grayscale because they've been using them. Some might want a more crypto-centric offering from somebody like Bitwise or Hashdex or Valkyrie. And then there's people in the middle like Van Eck, and Invesco has partnered with Galaxy. So there's no way to know how this is going to play out. One of the other things I'm focused on is the issue, a bunch of the ETFs out there now, you don't actually see the on-chain address, so you can't see exactly where the Bitcoin is. Maybe some of the bigger issuers aren't going to release those addresses so you can check it yourself to see if the Bitcoin is there. But some of these smaller issuers, I'd be shocked if we don't see a handful of these ETFs just saying, here, you can double check where whether or not we have this Bitcoin that we say we have, because that's a huge concern in the Bitcoin world. They think it's going to be paper Bitcoin and not actually have exposure to Bitcoin. But I can pretty much guarantee you some of these filers are going to publish their Bitcoin addresses so anyone and their mother can go on and look to make sure the Bitcoin is actually there when they say it is.